time and every time.
Okay.
It's from the Competent Communication Manual on the rule. The goal is to research her topic. Entitled, a 5 to 7 minute speech, You've Come a Long Way, Baby, or the History of Toastmasters and More. Please help me welcome Helen Antoniak.
Thank you, Michelle. And welcome back, Joe.
Thank you.
This is a very good meeting for you to come to because I am going to discuss the history of Toastmasters and more. How many of you here remember a television commercial which was introduced in 1968 by Philip Morris? You've come a long way, baby, to get where you are today. How many people remember that television commercial?
Because they were showing it through the 70s. That's what I remember.
Not to date yourself. This Virginia Slims cigarette commercial was one of the most popular product trademark commercials of all time. And the message behind it was that women had progressed so much that instead of secretly smoking cigarettes and being punished for doing so, now they were very sophisticated if they smoked these slender Virginia Slims cigarettes. And they, at least in the area of equality, thanks to that, women die of lung cancer at the same rate as men do. Well, let's look on a more bright thing than cigarettes commercials, and let's talk instead about Toastmasters. How many of you know that the founder of Toastmasters' name was Ralph Smedley? All right, I thought it was kind of an unusual name, and that's probably why I remember it. But it's much more of an interesting story than I would have first guessed, and that is way back in March 24th of 1905, Mr. Smedley, who at the time was a director of education at the YMCA in Bloomington, Illinois, came up with this idea of some sort of speaking club to help members with their communication. Now you have to remember YMCA, Young Men's Christian Association, so it was all men just by definition. And the idea at that time, when he started these meetings, were to have the older men give speeches and have their speeches evaluated and have the young men participate in the evaluations. And the idea behind this was not just to speak, but to conduct meetings, plan programs, and guess what? Work on committees. How about that? Interestingly, things floundered. Mr. Smedley went to a variety of positions in Illinois and then finally got to San Jose, California. But he was too busy with other YMCA things to help Toastmasters catch on. Even when he was responsible for the YMCA in Santa Ana, he spent 2 years establishing the YMCA before he finally got around to his first official meeting, which took place April 22nd, 1924. Guess what the number of that club is?
001.
Well, one.
1.
All right. Yes, that's club number 1. And what club are we, Michelle?
1125.
So that's quite a few clubs later. The idea spread and people clamored for information. Now you have to remember this is back in the 1920s, and poor Ralph Smedley got kind of tired of being besieged by people who wanted to find out how to start clubs. So he wrote his own publication. He wrote something called Manual of Instructions, published as a paperback, and 10 Lessons of Public Speaking. Wow, what does that remind us of? There we go, competent communicator. It wasn't until October 25th of 1928 that he copyrighted his books and trademarked Toastmasters Club. By 1930, there were 30 clubs, including one in British Columbia. So guess what he did to the title of Toastmasters?
Added international.
You're right, John. He added international. 1932, he took a very important step. He incorporated it as a California nonprofit organization. We have Joe here today who is working for a nonprofit organization. Smedley became the secretary and editor of the new association. In 1941, he resigned from his position in the YMCA to further focus on Toastmasters International. Remember 1941? He was doing that all the way through the war. And at the end of the war, a man named Ted Blanding replaced Smedley in his position as what he was holding before, but Smedley continued as the educational director and held a permanent position as a member of the board until he passed away in 1965. In 1962, Toastmasters International moved from small offices that they'd been occupying in different parts of Southern California to the first world headquarters in Santa Ana. Same place we were dealing with today. Now here's the next step that I wanted to bring us back to, and this is close to our hearts here in San Diego. In 1973, a woman by the name of Helen Blanchard applied for membership to Toastmasters International as Homer Blanchard, and thus became the first woman member of Toastmasters International. And today, you don't even think of there being a separate, segregated organization just for men, as it was until the mid-70s. So, thank goodness, we no longer call women baby, and we truly have come a long way in an important place, which is Toastmasters International. We've come a long way.
Thank you, Miss Helen. It's always good to know the history of the organization that we belong. And it has become an international, world-renowned, nonprofit organization that benefits a lot of folks. How many of you have